morning. It's April 7th here in Seoul and also a pretty dusty World Health Day. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the World Expo inspection team wrapping up their 4-day tour of Busan City. Busan has everything it takes to hold the World Expo, says the delegation from the Bureau International des Expositions. South Korea's cutting-edge technology, K-culture, and passion in the city reportedly stole their hearts. Global economic growth is set to hover around 3% for the next 5 years. The IMF chief also warns medium-term prospects are the weakest in more than 3 decades. After the much-needed rain here in the country, yellow dust and fine dust once again choked the nation, forcing authorities to issue emergency fine dust reduction measures. The World Expo delegation that will choose the winning bid for the upcoming one in 2030 has completed its project examination in South Korea's port city of Busan. Now, the 4-day inspection was more than successful, with the delegation pointing out that Busan has everything it takes to hold a World Expo. Our Song Yujin has the highlights.
The last day of the BIE's on-site inspection of Busan was another busy one. The delegation visited the world's one and only UN Memorial Cemetery in the morning and held a luncheon with young people in South Korea. In the afternoon, they took the time to speak to reporters about their 6-day visit.
We looked at the project from a financial point of view, logistical point of view, if the project has the necessary political support, if it has the support by the commercial entities, if it has the support from citizens. Busan has everything that it takes to host a World Expo.
What impressed them the most was the heartfelt warmth of Busan.
The welcome that was given to us by the citizens of Busan showed really the support for the project of Expo 2030.
Recognizing and offering to help tackle shared global challenges through the Busan Initiative and its 3 sub-themes were the strengths the BIE pointed out in the bid. The initiative is a core strategy of the city's candidacy that seeks cooperation with other countries to resolve the digital divide, climate change, public health, and food shortage crisis.
Expos are not just the 6-month events, but it's the whole process leading up to the event, and perhaps even more importantly, it's what we do with what we learned from this event afterwards, and what kind of partnerships and strategies we can build as a global community. So from that point of view, I think that the city of Busan, together with the Expo Bid Committee and the government of Korea, have a very good idea on how to push this forward. Themes need to evoke emotion. They need to really draw something out of us so that we can, all of us, all the different countries around the world, come and present something truly useful at an Every Expo. And when you look at the theme of Busan, you have the idea of climate change.
After the press conference, the BIE enjoyed a farewell dinner, followed by a firework display at Gwanghwaلی Beach. The delegation will next write an assessment report and hand it to the BIE's executive committee for an review. Based on this and the remaining presentations of the 4 candidate cities, the final decision will be made in November. Song Yujin, Arirang News, Busan.
Now, South Korea is more eager than ever to host the 2030 edition of the World Expo because the mega event is believed to bring huge economic benefits, from creating 500,000 jobs to helping startups make their debut on the global market. Our Lee Dae-hyun explains.
South Korea's government is all in to win the bid to host the World Expo in Busan. The economic impact it's expected to create is huge, 61 trillion won, or around $46.4 billion US, with 500,000 jobs expected to be created. But this is not the first time that South Korea has hosted an expo. In 1993, there was a Daejeon Expo, which was science-themed, and in 2012, the Yeosu Expo, focusing on its theme of oceans. These 2 past events differ from a World Expo in that they were recognized expositions, also called specialized expos, where the host country has to pay for the construction of all the pavilions used by each participant country. These expos only run for 3 months. The World Expo that Busan is aiming to host is what's called a registered exposition, whereby each participant country has to cover the cost of the construction of their pavilion. This type of expo runs for 6 months. Large corporations are also kicking into gear in order to help Busan win. At the Entrepreneurs Committee for the World Expo 2030 Busan, 11 giant corporations including Samsung Electronics, Hyundai Motor, SK, and LG are doing all they can to make sure the bid is a success. Business leaders from these companies have been traveling across the globe to drum up more support while showcasing the latest technologies that South Korea has to offer, like the 6G network, robots, and metaverse during expo-related events. Startups are also hopeful of seeing the World Expo in Busan in 2030, as the event may help rebalance regional growth compared to the capital, Seoul.
This is a chance for startup technologies to be showcased to the global market on our home ground. This could be a point where startups could seek for their expansion. There was a startup program at the Dubai Expo, so we're urging the Busan city government to operate the program this time as well.
Local industrial tech institutes and around 300 local companies are also showing their support for the bid by pledging to help with the event's technology infrastructure. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
President Yoon has been officially invited to address the joint meeting of U.S. Congress during a state visit to Washington later this month. Congressional leaders, including House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, announced Thursday they've invited President Yoon in honor of the 70th anniversary of the Seoul-Washington alliance. The invitation says Yoon's leadership has been instrumental in strengthening this partnership, saying the upcoming session could serve as a platform to highlight the past and the future of the bilateral relations. Chairman of U.S. House Committee on Foreign Affairs Michael McCaul, during his recent visit to Seoul, had extended an invitation in person, which President Yoon accepted. The session is set for April 27th, a day after Yoon's scheduled summit and state dinner with U.S. President Joe Biden. Today, April 7th, marks World Health Day, as well as the anniversary of the founding of World Health Organization in 1948. Now, what does it mean for us? For more, let's turn to Professor Howard Lee from Seoul National University. Welcome back to the program, Professor.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Sure, thanks for joining us. First off, why is it important or necessary that we do recognize the World Health Day?
Sure. World Health Day is one of the 12, quote-unquote, official global health annual campaigns promoted by WHO, or the World Health Organization. There are other campaign days and weeks, too, by WHO. For example, World Tuberculosis Day and World Immunization Week. These global health public campaigns offer great opportunity to raise awareness and understanding about critical health issues, which is important to mobilize support for action, both at a country and international levels. To recognize World Health Day, WHO selects a specific public health concern or issue every year to highlight a priority area of concern. And this year's theme is Health for All. WHO has defined health as a state of complete mental, emotional, and social well-being, which is not simply the absence of sickness or disability. Therefore, the initiative Health for All this year envisions a society where all people across all regions have equal access to good quality health services without too much worrying about financial risk or burden. That way, we may live happy lives in a peaceful, wealthy, and sustainable environment.
Right. The theme, Health for All, sounds very appropriate at this time of the year, too. Now, what can we do to commemorate the day, World Health Day? What can we do, Professor?
There are several that we can think of. First and foremost, we have to understand that health is a fundamental human right. Health is not a privilege of somebody, such as rich people or those who live in a wealthy country or safe district. Everyone on Earth must have access to health care when he or she needs it. However, more than 30% of the world's population still lacks access to basic health treatments. So we need to come together how we could reduce the health gap as fast and efficiently as possible. To make health for all a reality, we need to empower individuals and communities all together so they can care not only for their own but for their family's health as well. This can be accomplished only when we have a sufficient and uninterrupted supply of skilled health workers who are qualified to provide quality, people-centric care to us. This is why it is important to engage policymakers in the whole process. We have to ensure policymakers are committed to investing in developing new health tools and enabling health coverage as broad as possible to all in need.
Right. It's a must that no one feels left out or left behind when it comes to health. Now, as you and I have both mentioned, the World Health Day also marks the anniversary of its founding of the WHO in 1948. The organization has contributed so much, but what has the international body also done well in the past?
Yes, WHO celebrates its 75th anniversary today. WHO's 75th anniversary year is an opportunity to look back at public health successes that have improved quality of life during the past 7 decades. Particularly for the last couple of years, WHO has done a really nice job in curbing several infectious disease outbreaks other than the COVID-19. For example, they include Ebola, malaria, and Mpox, which is formerly known as monkeypox. Not only that, WHO has also shown leadership in providing guidance for governments globally as to how to transform mental health services to increase levels of physical activity and to prevent the oral diseases that affect almost half of the world's population. For example, tooth decay, severe gum disease, tooth loss, and even oral cancers.
Right. So many pending issues still at our hands left behind, but still we have the WHO working on it, and also we do mark and commemorate the day to keep in mind that health is not a privilege. It has to be accessible to everyone, all corners of the world.
Absolutely.
All right, Professor Lee, thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Years of weak growth set for the global economy. IMF Chief Kristalina Georgieva says the global economy is on pace for the weakest growth since 1990. Now, this as the global economy is expected to grow at around 3% over the next 5 years. Our Lee Seung-ja with the details.
According to the International Monetary Fund's Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva, on Thursday, the UN's Financial Monitoring Agency expects the global economy to grow at the slowest pace since 1990.
We project global growth for the next 5 years to remain around 3%. This is our lowest medium-term growth forecast since 1990.
Calling it the IMF's lowest medium-term prediction since 1990, the IMF chief noted that the latest forecast is well below the average of 3.8% in the pre-COVID decade. She pinpointed several reasons for the slowdown, including higher interest rates by the world's top central banks, which drove up borrowing costs for households and businesses. She also said that 2022's slowdown was due to the aftershocks of the COVID-19 pandemic, while the Ukraine war will lead to further deceleration in 2023. Georgieva says that China and India would account for half of global growth in 2023, while 90% of advanced economies would see a decline in their growth for the year. At the same time, low-income countries would see per capita income growth staying below that of emerging economies due to higher borrowing costs and weakening demand for their exports. Despite high interest rates being one of the major reasons behind the global economic slowdown, she still urged central banks to stay the course in the fight against inflation as long as financial pressures remained limited. Georgieva's comments come ahead of a meeting between the IMF and the World Bank in Washington next week, with the global economy top of the agenda. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The U.S. believes that North Korea is using decentralized finance to transfer and launder its illicit proceeds. According to U.S. Treasury Department's report on risk assessment of decentralized finance, North Korean hackers have turned to illicit virtual asset transactions to generate revenue for its weapons of mass destruction and ballistic missile programs. For example, the report says on March 23, 2022, the regime's state-sponsored cyber hacking group Lazarus carried out the largest virtual assets heist to date, stealing some $620 million from a blockchain project linked to the online game Axie Infinity. The report also noted that the North is linked to other illicit activities related to virtual assets, including ransomware attacks. French President Emmanuel Macron says he's counting on Chinese leader Xi Jinping to bring Russia to its senses. Now, both leaders are on the same page over preventing the use of nuclear weapons in the conflict in Ukraine. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
French President Emmanuel Macron and Chinese President Xi Jinping agree that the war in Ukraine should come to an end soon and nuclear weapons must be avoided at all times. This as the two met on Thursday in Beijing, with Macron arriving in the Chinese capital with a push for peace as one of his top agendas.
France shares the will to make sure that nuclear power is excluded from this conflict. International treaties should be respected. In no way can nuclear weapons be deployed outside of endowed states, especially in Europe.
We urge all parties to fulfill the solemn promise that nuclear weapons will not be used and nuclear war will not be fought. Oppose the use of biological and chemical weapons under any circumstances. Oppose the armed attack on civilian nuclear facilities such as nuclear power plants. Restart peace talks as soon as possible.
Macron also urged Xi to play a bigger role in mediating between Ukraine and Russia, saying he could count on Xi to bring back Russia to reason and get everyone to the negotiating table. Also during the day, EU Commissioner Ursula von der Leyen joined the two to form a trilateral meeting. There, she also reiterated China's willingness to play a part in forming peace between Ukraine and Russia.
I know from my phone calls that and President Zelensky asked for it publicly. So it was interesting to hear that President Xi reiterated his willingness to speak when conditions and time are right. I think this is a positive element.
Trade was also a major topic, with the EU claiming that European companies are not operating on a level playing field in China. Von der Leyen said decoupling from China is neither viable nor desirable from the perspective of maintaining good relations between China and the EU. Macron also made efforts to expand ties. Traveling with him to China were 50 French business leaders, including those from airplane producer Airbus and French luxury brand LVMH. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
After the much-needed rain here in the country, South Korea is experiencing very poor air quality across most parts of the nation, with a combination of smog and yellow dust expected on Friday. Ultrafine dust advisories and warnings have been issued in western regions, including the greater capital area. Emergency fine dust reduction measures are in place in southwest regions, and yellow dust from the west is expected to arrive in the country overnight. Children, the elderly, and those with respiratory problems should refrain from going outdoors, and those who must go out should wear a mask.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in Israel, where 6 rockets have landed after being launched from Lebanon. According to the Israeli military, a total of 34 rockets were launched on Thursday local time, of which 25 were intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome anti-missile system. Now, 1 person has been injured and no deaths were reported. No one has claimed responsibility for the launches, but the Israeli military believe they were conducted by Islamist militant group Hamas. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has responded to the rocket firings, promising to hit back at every act of aggression from Israel's enemies. The attack follows raids by Israeli police at the al-Aqsa mosque compound in Jerusalem on Wednesday evening. Known to Jews as Temple Mount, it's a holy site for both Judaism and Islam and has long been a flashpoint for tensions in the region. Taking a look at Tesla now, a special report from Reuters says that private videos and images captured by cameras on customers' cars were shared among Tesla's employees. Footage showing embarrassing and sensitive situations was reportedly shared through internal messaging systems between 2019 and 2022. These include road rage incidents and crashes into children. The revelations come after Reuters conducted interviews with 9 ex-employees who were involved in developing Tesla's self-driving system. Tesla and owner Elon Musk have not commented on the allegations of breaches of customer privacy, but Tesla's customer privacy notice says that its camera recordings are anonymous and are not linked to customer vehicles. Now, known for its wide variety of vending machines, which sell everything from edible insects to bread, bear meat is now also available in Japan. A vending machine in the remote town of Senboku in the north of the country is stocked with locally sourced bear meat. The meat is supplied by hunters during hunting season, when they are allowed to kill a specified number of bears as a form of population control. And the vending machine is getting some interest, with 7 to 10 250-gram packs sold per week at a cost of 2,200 Japanese yen, or around $17 US. But not all are pleased. Animal rights activists have condemned the vending machine and called for the hunting of bears for their meat to be stopped. And finally, visitors flocked to New York City's Botanical Garden on Tuesday and Wednesday local time to catch the rare corpse flower blossom. It gets its name from the rotting meat-like stench that the flower emits. But the odor is by design, as it's meant to attract pollinators that feed on dead animals. Officially called the Amorphophilus titanum, the flower blooms for only 24 to 36 hours, and that usually occurs only once every few years. The last time this flower bloomed was in 2019. Prior to that, it had not bloomed in 77 years. The flower is found in the rainforests of the Indonesian island of Sumatra.
Good morning. Right after we had some very welcome rain yesterday, now we are blanketed with that very much unwelcome gas, smog and yellow dust that are covering much of Korea. And again, especially those in western parts of the country are being hit hard with ultra-fine dust alerts issued there. Air quality should improve a bit as the day goes on, but be sure to check the level if you're planning on going outside and have a face mask on. Despite the poor air quality, it's going to be chillier than normal. Spring cold is here this morning, going down 1 to 3 degrees lower than the same time yesterday in most parts, and looks to be even colder on Saturday morning. But highs will go up higher this afternoon under sunnier skies. But the bright skies will be covered with yellow dust all day, and afternoon highs will be 3 to 5 degrees higher this afternoon in most parts of the country. Staying chillier than norms through Sunday morning before returning to normal in the afternoon. It's going to be quite windy all day on the East Coast and Jeju on Saturday. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That wraps up today's New Day at Arirang. We'll be back next week for Monday's edition at the same time. Enjoy your weekend.